Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. Today, another build showcase, and yeah, I revisited my Storm Secret Autobomber from 3.11 Harvest League, and to be fair, there is like two things that my build back in the days did not have, right? Headhunter, Harvest Crafting. So if you remember, it was like very early in the league when I decided to bring the Storm Secret, or test the Storm Secret Autobomber, and it was like a huge success, and I gotta admit, it was definitely actually one of my most favorite builds of Harvest League, because the other things like the in-stacking Wonder was insane, the Godslinger and stuff like that, but that was Harvest Crafting, right? And to be fair, my Storm Secret Autobomber from last league did not have that, okay? So yeah, it was in Harvest League, but overall it was so early in the league. I did not have a Headhunter. I did not have any like good items or Harvest crafted items. I remember I had like somewhere around 5 million Shaper DPS, which was quite good. I did all content with it. It was a great build. I really enjoyed it. It was definitely one of my most favorite builds of the league. But through the course of the time, when people got more currency and found out how Harvest Crafting actually works to make all these 6 times T1 items, there were people with like 30 million DPS on Herald of Thunder and stuff, you know. That was just complete different world of what I was playing. So this time around, I have we're like in the middle of the Heist League. We gathered quite some currency already, and I said like, you know what, I want to revisit this build, the Storm Secret Herald of Thunder Autobomber, just with a little bit more budget this time around, right? So I've made some tweaks, so it is pretty much the old version, more or less, right? We still have the maximum power charge with increased damage per damage per power charge. We still have the Exile Frenzy chest. We run a Badge of Your Brotherhood, the Headhunter, a +1 max power charge. So it's pretty much the same as we had before. The only difference this time around, we're using the alternate quality gems. And yeah, with the Anomalous Arctic Armor. And this is actually a very, very interesting thing to build around. But I would say, first of all, map showcase. I just, like a minute ago, I spawned my Saurus. This is Awakener 8. So I haven't really done anything on this build. At least I have done a lot of this build, but I haven't done any bosses, right? We currently have a playtime of 21 hours, so basically one day. We are level 93 point something, 93.5. And this build is like so fast and it's such like insane. I just love this build. I don't know. So I would say for the map showcase, we're just gonna go through all the Conquerors, then do Saurus, hopefully all deathless. You know, Storm Secret Autobomber is not the tankiest build, but is quite fine. I'm running like close to like 8,000 EHP over here, with having the Corrupted Soul over here that says like 50% of the damage is on life, 50% on energy shield, and then I'm running Dual Leech. With that being Storm Drinker for the Energy Shield Leech, and also Revitalizing Lightning for the damage leeched as life. So I'm getting damage on both sources, but I'm leeching on both sources, which makes it pretty easy to sustain all the damage. So yeah, for the mapping, basically you drop your Orb of Storms or your Stormbrand, doesn't matter, and then you just run around and you just let the Herald of Thunder do all the work, let things explode through the Explode chest. And it's just insanely fast. So at the moment, I'm not even having any haste buffs from Headhunter. This is my average mapping speed through the Elusive and the Badge of the Brotherhood. It is just getting ridiculously fast. And all you need to do is just run around and loot things. So it will be some... God damn it. These allies cannot die is always a little bit weird. So this will be, I think it will be a build guide, but overall it follows pretty much the same rules as back in the days. The only difference here is we can now basically permanently freeze map bosses. It's going to be quite fun, actually. So the thing is, like, since the we can talk a little bit about the Arctic Armor, basically, right? So what this is doing, the alternate quality, is it freezes enemies for 350 milliseconds when we get hit, right? Remember, with Storm Secret, we always get hit. That's how we proc our cast damage taken. This is basically how we can permanently proc this freeze, right? And since we hit our times like 8 times per second or something, right? We're gonna permanently freeze bosses. So, my first boss, we're gonna proc down some, Stormbrand, some Orb of Storm, proc Flasks. Can we actually permanently freeze him? No, we cannot. But the damage, good old Autobomber things, basically. the damage with Storm Secret with 2 of those, the Herald of Thunder damage is just ridiculous. And this is basically always what we kind of missed on Autobombers, more or less. So let's do the Veritania. You know, Autobombers always had insane clear, but this build just has insane single target as well. I wasn't even focusing on single target. I could reach about, I think, 20 million DPS on Herald of Thunder alone, but I decided to go more tanky, more life, more ES, more sustain, basically. Because in the end, my build currently has like 9 million Shaper DPS or something, right? And it's fair enough, it is such an insane single target, and I don't think you need any more single target. You can do if you want to, but for what reason, I would say, right? So mapping speed, as always, like, it's just so good. And we're actually able, if we stand next to the bosses, that we permanently freeze them, as long as there no modifier that is like, that we cannot inflict elemental ailments and stuff. So proc this, proc that. So a lot of big damage is actually the, what's it called? Algo Mortis, if you remember. So the Algo Mortis glove says enemies take 35% increased lightning damage on enemies on chilled ground, basically, right? Which is not a big deal, since we're doing chilled ground with like cast when damage taken setups, with like cold snap and stuff like that. But I think it's not needed. And remember, one thing that is very hard on this build is getting resistance going, especially when you're running with a Headhunter, right? So Headhunter, 2 Storm Secret rings, then we have Badge of the Brotherhood, and where do we ever gonna get our resistance, right? So you might say, well, you still have your helmet and your boots and stuff like that, which is true, but there is just so insanely good stats that you just not want to skip. For example, on the helmet, you want to mix the power charge with the negative lightning resistance, right? So it's going to be very hard to get any good resistance on it. For the boots, you want to have, for me at least, I want to have the avoid elemental ailments, right, for ailment immunity, and I want to have tailwind, right, and this is 2 suffixes, so if you want to multi-mod that, you're going to have 0 resistance on your boots as well. And this is like one of the biggest problems this build has, it is getting resistance. I even was forced, even if I have double T1 resistance on my gloves, I was actually forced to take the, what is it called, some jewels with resistance. And with jewel resistance, I mean double resistance, like all resistance, lightning cold resistance, stuff like that. But it's, in the other hand, you know, you're usually always seeking for some more damage and more damage and more damage. But I think the 10 million DPS that we have on this build is fair enough to do all content, as you see. And I don't need Algo Mortis or something like that, or even more critical strike multiplier on the build itself. It is a mapping build. You're gonna have, like, what is this shield here? Second, what is this shield? Mute Wind Pennant. Okay, I guess. So, what I was saying, it is a mapping build, okay? It is viable to do all content. It is viable to do Cyrus and Conquerors, as you saw. It is an all content build, but the main focus of this build is mapping. And I think, like, if you have a Headhunter, this is like one of the fastest and most satisfying builds that you can play nowadays for the mapping aspect, right? And since we still, like, there is a lot of complaints on my channel when I started the build. A lot of people said, like, dude, this build is weak, you know, it's shit. Without harvest crafting, this is absolute bullshit, right? Which I can just not agree with that. It is insanely fast. It is still very, very strong. Yeah, maybe you miss a couple % damage because of the nerf descendancy of the assassin, for example, right? And you have a harder time capping your resistance. But overall, I don't see there is any problem with the build, I would say, right? And if you watch this, you're probably gonna agree, because this is just like aesthetically very pleasing, I would say, right? There is multiple budget layers, I would say. So let me kill this boss real quick. So if you're wondering, can you do, or what is the budget? Since I already said this is high budget, can you do this on a low budget? And the answer is, yeah, you can. And this would be basically the Necromancer version with the Storm's Gift Impulsor version. There is the new helm that gives you +8 level to Herald of Thunder, or at least to Heralds. You're not gonna have as much speed as my assassin. You're not gonna have as much like damage, right? But overall, for the low budget, I would say we talk about 15 exalts or something like that, you can make a very cool Autobomber as a Necromancer. I think Empyrean Gaming did play this kind of build early in the league. It was like, I don't know, he said like 10 or 15x budget. It uses the same things that my Autobomber uses. It is actually a little bit more tanky, but you're just not gonna have this kind of speed and damage. So, my first Cyrus on this, Autobomber. I haven't really died a lot on this build, to be fair. I have like 7 times, where I have to say, 4 times was a full Delirium map, and 3 times was when I did my challenges with the bosses here, with the, the Heist bosses, basically, right? And I tried to do this, and I actually got one-shotted. And the full Delirium thing is something I want to talk about, because this build is not really good for full Delirium. And I'm going to explain in a little bit why. So, let me quickly try to do this beautiful Cyrus. It shouldn't be a big deal. I'm not even sure how easy it will be to shock him. Maybe mid-flask? Yeah, okay. So with Flask, it's not really hard to shock him, and there is already phase transition. So, I don't know, like, I'm running like 10 million DPS, and there is actually like 3 million DPS on my Stormbrand. Like last league, I actually played it with dual Stormbrand, which is the keystone over here with the Runebinder, right? But I don't think this is necessary at all. Like, if my Stormbrand does like 4 million DPS, with this node it deals like 8 million plus the 10 million of my Herald of Thunder, which would be close to 20 million DPS. If you count in like Orb of Storms and things like that, I think absolutely not need at all. Dude, if I have 10 million shape per DPS on Herald of Thunder alone, I don't need any support, basically, right? Can we actually shock him? Oh yeah, we can shock him without Flask, because this was like a little bit weird. The thing is, like, you have to understand, shocking bosses is not that easy, actually, right? There is always like this stun threshold, or what you would say. So you need to hit a certain amount of damage to shock an enemy, right? Which is in mapping and so on. Map boss is absolutely no problem, but the problem is when it's a boss, and if you like, bosses have like more physical damage mitigation and LE and stuff like that, less effective of course, for example, they gonna ignore your shocks, right? You have to do a certain amount of damage, or otherwise the boss will not be shocked, and this is the big deal, right? And how to get to this point that we can actually shock him is actually shock effectiveness. So if I say, hey, let's say we need to do 100 million damage to apply a shock that is big enough to shock Cyrus, that we need to actually proc our Herald of Thunder, basically, from the Storm Secret Rings, then we can stack Effect of Shock, and this will lower the stun the shock threshold, more or less, right? So now we don't need 100k damage to proc our shock, we only need like 80k damage or something like that, right? And this is the most important part over here. So let me quickly focus, let's get an Awakened Multi-Strike or some cool shit. Can you get... No! So, hope I don't fail. Keep track of where he's porting. And now we should be dead, actually. We actually have Culling Strike. Hey, are we actually freezing Cyrus? That would be a little bit awkward. There we go. And we got Awakened Multi-Strike, Awakened Spell Echo, we got Awakened everything, just not... I hate this boss. I don't know, I always see Gamer for Life, everybody's getting like Awakened Multi-Strike, Spell Echo, Awakened Control Destruction, like all the good things. Dude, I do the boss, I can be happy if I get actually a Watchstone or the gloves that break on the first Valor, right? But yeah, so, boss is done, Conquer is done, proved it is viable for all content, was always, hopefully will always be if it doesn't get like destroyed to the ground, but I don't see a reason why that should be. So as I said, it is quite hard to shock bosses. A big thing that might help you is Overshock, that I currently not even have, because I was like chaos spamming that shit, but yeah. It's like quite hard without Harvest Crafting to get some good cluster jewels going. But Overshock has like 30% increased effect of shock, for example, and then we have other nodes on the tree, and especially the alternate quality. I think Phantasmal Stormbrand has increased effect of shock if you take that, so it will be easier to shock the enemy, to proc your Herald of Thunder, to just have this insane amounts of damage. What you can do is take the Algor Mortis gloves for single target, so it takes like, it's like a 30% more damage basically, for things like Shaper, or at least Shaper, Saurus, and the other bosses to just generate more damage overall. But as I said, good luck capping a resistance without harvest crafting. That's not even that easy. I really had to stack some of those jewels out, like Fire, Cold, Lightning Res, a little bit of multiplier. What do we have here? Ali Res, Cold Lightning Res, right? We had this all res nodes over here, and I'm actually was considering scaling into Holy Dominion as well for the 12% elemental resistance. Good. So the thing with the permanently freeze, I would say, let me actually make another map showcase. Do we have a summit map somewhere? Summit, or any boss that is actually cool, that doesn't die instantly, basically. Lair map should work, I guess. It's pretty good layout as well. Let me actually quickly try to get some more monster life on it, so the boss doesn't really die that fast. So we get some more monster life. Monster elemental resistance. That is actually not bad, because then we do less damage. It's pretty much the same, more or less, than more life on the enemy, right? Because I want to show you that this actually, with the combination of the Storm Secret permanently hitting ourselves, and then using the Anomalous Arctic Armor with Enhance for more quality, the Elemental Proliferation, and the Unbound Ailments to permanently like freeze everything that is around us, and with the Elemental Proliferation, it's going to be even sicker at that part. So you probably like, when stuff is not dying instantly, it's like permanently frozen. Unless we have like a map now with, no, it's fine, it's fine. So I would say for the, well, clearing, I think we're just gonna run to the boss, because this is actually the point that I want to show you guys for like the permanent freezing. It's like super fun. It's a great defensive layer as well, right? Like everything that comes close to you that is in reach of the Arctic Armor will be permanently frozen or chilled and stuff like that. It's actually quite fun. So skip everything, run, 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 run. Faster, Exile, do something. Fast, fast, more. Leveling gems in the meanwhile. Is this a new record for a layer map? Do we have Headhunter buffs? Only one, but that's totally fine, I guess. So let me see. Yeah, you saw it a little bit, right? So he wasn't even spawning his wolves. I just have too much damage, I guess, at this part. But yeah, you're permanently freezing map bosses, and this is just insane. As I said, the Anomalous Arctic Armor with the chance to freeze enemies for 350 milliseconds. It is usually 20%. It is now on 44 because of the enhanced support. And then the Alley Proliferation with increased area of effect will spread all of this freeze, chill things, and the Unbound Ailments will make this last even longer, because at the moment it's only 350 milliseconds. But as I said, you have a chance and 350 milliseconds, but with the amount of hits that we get, we're like permanently freezing map bosses on this part, right? And you're chilling bosses and stuff. Good. Anything else to talk about this build? As I said, this is like a remake of the last League's build, more or less, right? Back then, I really explained it in detail, what I did to the tree and stuff, and how everything is working. Just here as a small reminder, as I said, Storm Secret, don't use the Elemental Catalyst, because they patched it. It says take 250 lightning damage when Herald of Thunder hits an enemy, but if you use the Elemental Catalyst, it goes up to 300, which makes it like to 600 instead of 500, so you're gonna get even more damage, so it's totally fine if we just Catalyst it for resistance, because you're gonna need resistance anyways, right? Good. So, as I said, Glorious Vanity, then with Doriani to get the Corrupted Soul, so we get 20% of our life as extra energy shield, and we're gonna split the damage as I explained before, and then I just divined it until I get the Revitalizing Lightning, so we have the lightning damage leeches life. What you can also do is get what is it, Doriani's lesson, I think, that will also give you elemental damage leech this life. But as I said, it is quite hard to get good cluster jewels, because what you want to have is Overshock, Doriani's lesson, and Storm Drinker, right? And I spent like 2000 chaos spamming this one, and I barely hit it. And with Harvest Craft, or at least with fossil crafting, it's hard to get the other ones. I mean, it is easier to get Doriani's Lesson, but it's harder to get the other stuff, right? But what you can do is, instead of Storm Drinker, just to anoint the Heart of Thunder to get the lightning damage leeches energy shield, which is not really necessary too much, to be honest, because I just forgot about that, using the energy shield leech support. So why energy shield leech? Because we're permanently leeching in that regard, because yeah, we're full on energy shield, right? Our Herald of Thunder hits, we're gonna take damage through the Storm Secret, and then we're gonna leech up, right? So we're never gonna be on full energy shield in that regard, even if it looks like we are always full, but we're permanently losing on every single Herald of Thunder strike. We're losing energy shield, we're leeching back up, so we're gonna get the full damage bonus of the energy shield leech support. Good. As I said, Glorious Vanity with the Corrupted Soul. Other changes that I've applied to here, what is new? Yeah, my Thread of Hope, that is kinda okay, I would say, but yeah, the thing is, I took Spiritual 8 on this one. The reason for that is we crafted these gloves yesterday and we just slammed them after we hit like the double T1 res in life, and we got minion damage. And then I was like, wait a second, minion damage. Could we just take Spiritual 8 and then instead of using the area of effect notes that are not really that good, we're just gonna take the minion notes to get more damage. So just if you're wondering why I'm actually using those minion notes over here, right? Because Herald of Thunder has a hard time scaling, I would say, right? So here we have critical strike chance for spells. It does not apply to Herald of Thunder. All these crit multi-nodes for spells do not apply, right? So it is quite hard to scale the Herald of Thunder. You can do like global damage, lightning damage, minion damage in that regard, because this is counting as global damage as well. Then multiplier, critical strike chance, and most importantly would be the plus level of socketed gems, or at least plus level of gems in total. My Herald of Thunder is only level 22, but with all the other stuff that I have, we are still getting 10 million Shaper DPS, right? The harvest crafting time, I think, is over, where you say like, hey, my staff has +3 lightning and +2 all spells and power charge and whatnot. So yeah, it's not a harvest build. Harvest is gone. And for the people that are wondering, no, I don't miss harvest. I enjoy these builds way more. We're really, if you're grateful, you know, when you have a sick craft or slam, for example, like I did, the damage pen and stuff like that, I'm super happy, you know. But in harvest craft, that would be, that's actually bad, right? So, let's go over the gear. Here I mixed the +1 max power charge with the -9 lightning resistance, was the Crusader and the Warlord, and then just annulled off, luckily hit the T1 fire res, which is very good, because we're gonna like cold and fire resistance a lot on this build, since we get some lightning resistance out of our Storm Secret, and yeah, then you just multi-mod for life and energy shield, since we're a hybrid build. Then I have here Orb of Storms, the Anomalous version. I'm not even going to go over too much about these alternate qualities, but all that I'm using are better than the standard version, because otherwise I would use the normal version, right? This one, for example, has beam splits towards 2 additional targets, which means it's more likely when I pop down my Orb of Storms that it will hit multiple targets to increase the chance that my Herald of Thunder goes off. Then here I have Awakened Hex Touch with Conductivity and Ally Weakness. If you don't have the budget for that, just Hex Touch and Conductivity because of the increased chance to shock. And then if you have to, you can also like manually add the Assassin's Mark if you want to go over and take like Whispers of Doom and stuff. So we can actually have higher base crit and higher damage against bosses. But I'm too lazy for that, so I just went with the Awakened Hex Touch. Conductivity and Elemental Weakness. For the staff, I mixed together the +1 max power charge from Shaper with the damage per power charge from the Crusader, and then I annulled off the third suffix, and then I was like, you know what, let's just spend some currency like meta crafting the prefix, and I hit this one after, yeah, some exalts. It was actually very expensive. I made a huge loss on this staff actually. But whatever. Currency is here to be used, I guess. Then just multi-modded lightning damage. Lightning damage is extra chaos. Super generic staff for that. Herald of Thunder, Ally Focus, lightning damage, power charge on crit, energy shield, and hypothermia. If you're wondering why hypothermia, because hits like damage, more damage with hits and ailments against chilled enemies. And don't forget, enemies are always chilled and frozen with this one. And on top of that, we still have Stonebrand with the hypothermia support as well. And then next question would maybe be, why Elemental Focus on Herald of Thunder? So the thing is, Herald of Thunder on its own cannot shock, and that's why we can basically use it with Ally Focus, because we don't need to generate ailments with Herald of Thunder. For that, we have the Orb of Storms and we have the Stormbrand, right? Or even the Arctic Armor in this regard. Then on the chest, I mixed the Chance to Frenzy Charge and Hit with Redeemer plus the Explo from Crusader. A pretty generic chest. This one looks good with a T1% ES, but I think it's not that great. I mean, it gives a little bit of resistance, and I get the 10% max life ES combination. But I would say the next step that I would like to apply on this build is adding an aspect of the spider. So what could I do is Frenzy and Explo, just annul it off, make sure to make an imprint before, and then use the aspect of the spider, and then multi-mod it for life and life ES combination over here, and that would be the better chest than what I currently have. But at the moment, I'm lacking cold resistance. So fire resistance would be fine since this only has 20, but then I would drop to like 50 cold resistance, and I don't know where to get the cold resistance from at the moment, right? Probably I need to get better cluster jewels to get more resistance over here, and this might fix the problem over here, right? So here I have Stormbrand, Control Destruction, Added Lightning Damage, Conk Effect, Divergent Energy Leech Support, and Hypothermia. So you have to understand, there is 2 support gems that PUB will basically tell you that is better. For example, Swiftbrand. So as I said, we want to make like big hits with Stormbrand and not the maximum DPS, because the Swiftbrand will leave our average hit on the same, but it will boost the frequency, right? So the overall damage is higher. But what we want to have is single hits should do the most damage possible, so we can trigger our Herald of Thunder on bosses, right? The next support gem that will get applied, or at least will PUB show you, is Arcane Surge, which is, yeah, I mean, how, like, if you have a level 21 Arcane Surge or something, right, you sit here and be like, oh, well, maybe like 3 or 4 more casts and I will probably get my Arcane Surge, right? So don't always believe what Path of Building is telling you in terms of support team. You need to have, like, understand how this is working and how to get there. And this is also why we use Conk Effect, because it has more area damage, and this will just boost the average hit of Stormbrand to a quite nice level. So it's quite easy to apply the shock on a boss and then proc the Herald of Thunder. Then here, Arctic Armor, Enhance, Elemental Proliferation, and the Unbound Elements, as I explained before. The item itself, Life Resistance, whatever you can get. For the boots, I choose to go with the Avoid Elemental Ailments mixed with the Tailwind. So I'm getting my 100% chance to avoid Elemental Ailments, so we're immune to Freeze, Shock, Ignite, Brittle Sap, whatever. And I get this by 35 on the boots. Then we have 25 crafted on the gloves, which is like 15 total. Then we have 10% over here, makes it, wait, 25 and 35 is actually 60, right? Then we have 10% on the elemental focus over here, makes it 70. And then I'm using the Elegant Form Small Cluster Jewel. This gives also 30%, so we're gonna get 100% ailment immunity, which is another super nice layer of defense, especially when you map a lot. So that's pretty much great. And then I nulled it off, and then, like, same as on the staff, I just throw a couple of exalts on it, trying to metacraft any good stat, and I hit unaffected by Desecrated Ground, which is quite nice, because, like, what prefixes would you like to have? Like, pretty much the same as always, like, life, movement, speed, and on this build, actually, energy shield. But overall, you know, you want to scale life more than energy shield, because you're going to generate energy shield from your bases. We have Sorcerer Gloves, we have a Hubris Circlet, we have a Val Regalia, we have the 2-tone boots for the cold and lightning resistance. So we're going to generate more energy shield on that regard just from the bases. So we're going to focus on life more, because the more life we have, the more energy shield we're going to get from the maximum life is extra energy shield over here. Good, here I have Flame Dash, Wave of Conviction, then Cast for Damage Taken, and the Animala's second wind support, so we have more charges. Sorry. We're gonna use a Badge of the Brotherhood. This basically makes that our maximum power charges are equal to our maximum frenzy charges, or the other way around. We just scale power charges to get the same amount of frenzy charges. This way we're gonna have the frenzy charge and hit chest, so we can sustain that. At the moment I'm running 9 power charges, which is 1 from the Ascendancy, 1 from the staff, 1 from the helmet, then 3 on the skill tree, and 3 is natural. And then that means we have 9 power and frenzy charges. And the next cool thing on this is the increased cooldown recovery rate of travel skills, which is quite nice. We can permanently flame dash pretty much when this is up, and as well as the effect of elusive. So Since we're using Mistwalker, we already have increased effect of elusive, and we're not going to take extra damage from critical strikes, and we're also going to proc the elusive on critical strike. And this one gives you, I think it was like 15% dodge, spell dodge, and movement speed or something like that. And with all the effect, that's why the character is so insanely fast, because we're going to have effect of those. We're going to, like, I don't know how much percent we have, like 100-something% extra effect of the elusive, which makes this character just super tanky and also super efficient and fast, basically, for the overall mapping speed, I would say. Better would be +1 amulet, +2 amulet, whatever you would like to, but I just love Badge of the Brotherhood. I think it's like the perfect amulet for the assassin, and that's why I use it. Storm Secret, as obvious, the build enabler in this regard. Headhunter, yeah. I mean, why would you not take? Like, the thing is, like, when people ask, like, hey, can you play this build without a Headhunter, right? Yeah, you can. Can you play this build without explosions? I mean, yeah, you can, yeah, right? But the thing is, an Autobomber without Headhunter, without explosions, is not really an Autobomber, you know? Like, it is, like, comparable to cars, right? Let's say I'm driving a Ferrari here, right? Because Headhunter, Badge of the Brotherhood, Exploit Chest, super cool gear and whatnot, and you have 5 Exalt's budget. Oh, no, we're gonna do it different, because I don't like all these hate comments. You have all my gear, right? And I am the guy with the 5 Exalt's budget, and I'm asking you, hey, can I do this without this and this and that? And that would be you driving the Ferrari, right? And I'm driving a red Opel Corsa or some shit, you know? And that means that, yeah, we share the same color of the car, and both are cars, but, you know, it's still not really the same, right? I could maybe put the Ferrari logo on the Opel Corsa. If that would help, I probably don't think you will give any extra horsepower, right? So I'm just saying, if you want to really play this build, have a lot of fun, then I would definitely suggest you to use a Headhunter Badge of your Brotherhood combination. It's just very, very good and insane in terms of everything. And this was, by the way, no hate against the company Opel or the car that they built and stuff like that. It was just like an example, right? Please don't hate me. So, good. Anything else? Bleed Immunity Flask, Bottled Faith, Sinner Swallow for the good speed, Curse Immunity Flask, and Quicksilver Flask. A Series Promise would also be very good if I want to skip the Quicksilver Flask if I want to. But as I said, Path of Building link is in the description below, where you can get all the information that I'm showing over here. For the cosmetics, this time around I'm using the entire Dragon Hunter boots, body armor, helm, gloves. We have the wings, we have the Dragon Hunter footprints, the character effect, the weapon effect, so everything that is Dragon Hunter, right? Port effect Dragon Hunter, and the demonic weapon with the Mark of the Phoenix and Pitch Black Banana. Also using the Automaton Stonebrand, the Dragon Hunter Herald effect, Orb of Storm Celestial, then Invisible Buff effect. I think that was the Arctic Armor, and Dragon Flame Dash. One thing I want to note here, obviously this is a lone messenger build. We're not going to have any other auras active besides the Herald of Thunder. Or at least you cannot have any others, so no Wrath, no nothing, which doesn't really wouldn't be good anyways, right? Because Wrath doesn't scale Herald of Thunder. As I said, it is hard to scale that skill, right? And Low Messenger pretty much doubles the DPS, same as our Herald of Thunder rings, and that's why we're gonna do so much damage with Herald of Thunder, right? And if you're wondering, hey, you're using Arctic Armor and you want to go Aspect of the Spider next, how can you do this with the Low Messenger? And this for obvious reasons, because Arctic Armor is not an aura, and the Aspect is not an aura, okay? So this is something you can add on the build. And if I would go Aspect, I would just take 1 point into Serenity, and then I can actually reserve all of that while using the Aspect of the Spider. But as I said, I'm kind of lacking the cold resistance at the moment. I need to figure out a way to do that to get my Aspect going. And you can also use the Unnatural Calm, which is also pretty nice because it is a lot of energy shield as well as 1 maximum lightning resistance, which helps to sustain the Storm Secret rings. Good. What else to explain, what else to say? I think if I was missing something, I'm 100% sure that on the videos from the last league do have all the information you're looking for if you're still interested in something and if the POB doesn't help you in this regard. But I think the biggest changes, as I said, is the Animalist Arctic Armor with the Permafreeze and the alternate quality gems, and that is pretty much it. The rest is pretty much the same way as we used to have it last league. And as I said, my build last league was kind of very rough on the budget. This time around I have the currency and I wanted to remake it, and I'm just enjoying this build so much. It is so fun, fast, has an insane clearing speed. Oh, and one point that I want to mention before I stop the video, Delirium. So I initially made this build to farm tropical island maps on T17 to produce simulacrum sprinters, right? This works fine, I would say. It's probably not the fastest, and it's not 100% delirium build that you can do that, right? The reason for that is, think about it. Yes, I do have 10 million single target on Herald of Thunder, but this only means if there is one enemy and all the 8 Herald of Thunders that I can proc per second basically from my Storm Secret rings hit the same target. Let's say every Thunder Strike deals like 1 million damage, right? With 8 strikes per sec, we're around about 8 million DPS, right? What happens in full delirium maps or in these tropical island maps, if you really choose that up, you know, you want to use breach scarabs, legion, like you want to produce as much map or monster quantity as possible. And what happens is that your Herald of Thunder will split among all the enemies, right? So you're gonna hit here a million, here a million, here a million, here a million, and if it's a 100% delirious map with full juice, then the monsters are quite tanky, and you're not gonna one-shot them as in the way that I just showed on the map showcase, where it just run next to it and it just everything blows up. On full delirium, that will not work, and on the tropical island, it works. So I've done a run. I produced like 60 splinters. But my friend has an average of like 80 or 90 splinters on his Aura Stacker, so I don't know if Aura Stacker is just that much better, or if it's just still better to use a Blade Vortex Fire version to farm these tropical islands, because they just have a lot better clear when it comes to the insane monster pack sizes, right? But overall, as I said, this build, just if you really like mapping, spawning Sauras and whatnot, and just run your Heist, for example, is also very good for Heist running, just because this insane amount of speed. You're gonna go in, just loot everything, go out, and you're pretty much done in a second, basically, or in a minute, depending on what blueprint or contract you're running. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this build. Thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.